There are all sorts of useful string functions that are included as standard in the libraries provided with your C compiler. Now, to use the standard string functions, be sure to include string.h, as I've done here. Just about all C compilers provide a range of functions to do common operations such as concatenation and copying of strings. And many C compilers also provide additional functions. So be sure to check the documentation of your C compiler to find out the full range of functions that are available. Now, here I'm just going to show you a few of the traditional functions for use with strings and with characters. And these functions should be available with pretty much any C compiler that you happen to be using. Now, one thing to bear in mind is when copying or concatenating strings, you need to ensure that the destination string has enough memory to hold all the characters after the string operation. So in my code, I've declared the destination strings with a fixed length. And to do that, I've first of all defined this constant max strlen to be 200. And now here, for example, I've got these two variables, msg1 and msg2, and I know the size that's going to be contained, the length of the string that's going to result when I've concatenated other strings onto it is going to change. So it's not sufficient for me to assume that the string will have the length that I've assigned when I've initialized it up here. I need to set aside more space. So that's why I've put max strlen between square brackets. That sets aside enough memory to hold 200 characters, which is more than enough for my purposes. Let's briefly look then at a few of these standard string functions. Let me first run it. You'll find this in 05_ string functions in the sample projects. Right, I've got this long string up here which I've declared, and I've put these numbers underneath the tens to show you how many characters there are in the string. So at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, then 20, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and so on. So we can see where we are. So first of all, I've just found the length of the string using the strlen function, and that shows me the length is 99. Then I found the length of hello, the string literal hello, and it shows me the length is 5. Now I've called search string and I've passed to it 3 different strings, second, Christmas and Easter. And search string is my function up here. Now this uses the str function to search for a substring, and that's returned as a pointer. And then I've declared found at, and with this little calculation down here, I've calculated the position at which the substring is found, and I've displayed the results. So second is found at position 8, and you can see up here that 2nd, second, the substring, is found at character position 8, so that's correct. Christmas is found from position 19, but Easter, I've searched for Easter, but that string doesn't occur at all, so it displays that that is not found. And then after that, I've called copy string. That's my function that I've written up here. Copy string uses the strncpy function to copy one string to another string. And then finally I've called concat string. This is another function I've written. This time it uses strcat. This concatenates 2 strings. So if I concatenate Easter, well, that adds on the string Easter to msg1, the variable msg1. This explains why I had to set a specific number of characters, because msg1 already contains a string with a fixed number of characters. If I hadn't specifically set aside these extra characters by putting the constant representing 200 in square brackets, I would have had an overrun, which, as we've seen from previous examples, can cause all kinds of undesirable problems. So with a second example, however, I've limited the number of characters to be concatenated. So although I've used the string Easter, I've given this third argument 4, and that limits the number of characters to be concatenated, and we can see the results. First of all, the string Easter is concatenated, and the result is the original string MSG1 result : and it's had Easter added onto it. But with the second example, I've limited the number of characters to 4, so only the characters East have been concatenated. So those are some simple examples of some of the traditional string manipulation functions in C. As I've said, be sure to check the documentation with your C compiler. You are likely to have many more string functions, some of which might be superior in many respects, safer to use than these traditional ones which I've shown here. Now, some, but not all, modern C compilers support a standard of the C language called C11. And these provide a number of safer alternatives to the traditional C functions. And these are functions that end with the names _s, and they typically take additional arguments that help to verify that only a fixed number of characters are used when, for example, you copy or concatenate strings. And that can help avoid problems, such as buffer overruns, which we've spoken about earlier in this course. Now, it turns out that the Microsoft C compiler, and here I'm loading up Visual Studio, does support these functions, so that's what I'm going to be using in this example. Now, here you can see an example using strncpy_s. To see how this works, I'm going to turn to the documentation provided on the Microsoft website, and it shows me the arguments. First of all, there's a destination string, then there's the number of elements, that's the size of the destination string in characters, and that lets me specify exactly how many characters I'm going to allow to be copied, and then the source string from which the characters are copied, and the count of the characters to be copied. So let's try this out. I've got a string set up here. This is my destination string. The size that I'm going to allow, the total size that I want to be copied, the source string providing the characters to be copied, and the number of characters. And this function also returns, optionally you can use an error code, an integer, which is 0 if there are no problems, otherwise it is some other sort of error code. Now let's try this. And already I've run into problems. It says the L buffer is too small. Let's see if I can work out what the problem is. Okay, it turns out that here I've tried to copy 6 characters into a destination of 6 characters, but I need to allow space for the additional null terminator. I could fix that by increasing the size of the destination, and that works okay, and you can see the error code is 0. But there's another way, so let me just verify that I'm back to having the problem. Yeah, okay, there's the problem again. And if I look at the documentation again, it tells me that I can use something called _truncate to effectively to cut off any excess characters to solve any problems. So let me try that one. So instead of putting a number of characters here, I just put truncate. Try it again. And it truncates the character, so I don't get the full East, I just get East with an E on the end. And it returns an error code, so I can see in my code that there's a problem and I could go back and fix it at a later date. The second example down below has no problem. I only try to copy 4 characters, so that returns an error code of 0. So that's one example of how to use this alternative string copying function, which is one of a number of _s functions that may be available with your compiler.